Assalamu alaikum everyone. Okay, so in this video we are going to solve some NUST entry test past paper sample questions which are related to the topic functions and limits. So let's get started. Okay, so this is the first question. Acha. Now let's read the question. Now this question is basically related to the topic limits. In order to solve this question, first we need to understand the fact that when we will use the limit, that is x equals 0, we will have 0 over 0, and 0 over 0 is indeterminate form, right? So we cannot just write down or leave the answer this way. We need to simplify this. In order to simplify this, we use L'Hopital's rule. So L'Hopital's rule basically says that if we are getting indeterminate form, what we do is we just take the derivative of both the numerator and denominator and then try using the limits, right? So since if I will use the limits directly, I will get 7 plus 0 minus 7 divided by 0, and that is 0 by 0, right? So there's no point in doing it this way. We need to do something about this question, and that something is we need to use the L'Hopital's rule. So let's try the question by using the L'Hopital's rule. In order to apply the L'Hopital's rule, what we need to do is we take the derivative of both the numerator and denominator. So the derivative of numerator would be 1 by 2, because we have a bracket with power 1 by 2, and then we will write down the function that is 49 plus x minus 1 by 2, and then we need to divide this by the derivative of the denominator, that is 1, because in denominator we have 1, we have x, so its derivative would be 1. Okay, now we need to use the limits. Now when we use the limits that are x equals 0, so what we get is 1 by 2 under root 49, because x is 0, and that is going to give us 1 by 2 into 7, that is 1 by 14. So this means that the answer would be B. Okay, let's talk about the next question. That is the second question. The domain of the function h of x equals this is. Now we know that if we talk about under the root, we cannot have a negative number there, right? So we have minus 4 here. This means that the domain would be all the real numbers except those numbers which will give me a negative number there. So let's see what numbers would give me, what values of x would give me a negative number under the root. That is less than 0, and so it is minus 2 less than x and x less than 2. This means that we have all the real values except this range, so the answer would be D. Okay, let's talk about the third question now. Acha, so in the third question we have e to the power 1 by x to the 4, where x is going to 0. Okay, now we know that when something in the denominator goes to 0, the value becomes infinity. So this basically is e to the power infinity. Okay, and most of the time students end up choosing a as the option, because they say that okay, e is a number, and when we multiply e infinite times, it would be a. No, e is a decimal number. When you will multiply a decimal number with itself, you will get those many decimal places, right? This means that our value would be very, very close to 0. So B would be the answer. Okay, let's talk about the fourth question. The domain of the inverse of the function f of x equals, okay, since we are interested in inverse, so domain of the inverse would be the range of this function. So what is the range of this function? Well, we know this, that this factor could be 0. It cannot be negative, it can be 0. If it is 0, then the maximum possible uh, limit of the function, or minimum possible limit of the function would be 2, and it can go till infinity. Okay, if x get bigger, the value would become bigger, and the answer would be like close to infinity. So B is the answer, right? It's starting from 2 when x is 1, and it's going on till infinity. Okay, let's talk about the next question. Okay, now here we have the fifth question. Acha, so this is basically x going to c. This is not e, this is c. Acha, what do we have? We initially have x to the power p minus c to the power p divided by x minus c. When we will use c directly, the value would become 0 in both the numerator and denominator. So just like the first question, this is the indeterminate form. We cannot leave this way. We need to do something about this. So what we do is we basically take the derivative and then plug in the value of c. Okay. Acha, so let's take the derivative of both the numerator and denominator. If I take the derivative of numerator, it would be p x to the power p minus 1. Okay. Divided by the derivative of the denominator, that is simply 1. Okay, I'm applying the Lopital's rule. Acha, so this would be 1. Now I need to use the limit. So limit comes instead of x. So this would be p. X would become c because that is the limit, and c to the power p minus 1. So this means that the answer is D. Again, I repeat, just like the first question, whenever we get 0 by 0 or indeterminate form, we cannot leave it like that, okay? We need to take the derivative of numerator and denominator and then plug in the value, just so we get a proper answer and not the answer in indeterminate form. Acha, let's talk about the sixth question. Now, in the sixth question, we have 4x minus 8 divided by x plus 2, and limit is x going to 3. We simply need to use 3 instead of x. So it would be 4 into 3 is 12. 12 minus 8. And in the denominator, we have x plus 2. So that would be 5. So this would become 12 minus 8 is 4, and 4 by 5. So the answer is D. Okay, now this was a simple question. We just had to use the value of x, just plug in that value, and we got our answer. And this is how we initially tried doing the first question and the fifth question as well. But since when we use this limit directly in the fifth and the first question, we were getting indeterminate form. So we have to use the L'Hopital's rule then. Okay. We have the seventh question now. F of x is x square plus 3, then f of a plus b is. Okay, so we need to use the value of a plus b instead of x. Okay, so that would be f of a plus b, and that will give me what? The same function, but instead of x, I will have a plus b, right? Because this is the difference. We have a plus b in the function. So this would be a plus b plus 3. Okay, so we have a square plus b square plus 2ab plus 3, right? So the answer would be A option. We just need to expand a plus b simply, and then we need to add 3, right? So this would be the answer. Again, this was a simple question. We had a function f of x, and we had to find f of a plus b. Whenever we come across such questions, what we need to do is we need to just replace the value of x with the given value, okay? So this is how our answer would change. Acha, let's talk about the eighth question now. In the eighth question, we have two functions in both in numerator and denominator. So when we will use 0 here, this will become 0, this will become 0, 3x cube will become 0, 7x to the 4 will become 0, and 5x square will become 0, right? And we will be left with 9 by 17. So C is the answer. Again, in this form, in this question, this wasn't the indeterminate form. This was a simple form. We were able to do it directly. So we just did it. We don't have to take the derivative of both the numerator and denominator because we were able to get a simple answer, right? Okay. Let's talk about the next question then. So this is the seventh question. In the seventh question, we have, it's the ninth question. Let the variable z take in succession the values 6, 6.5, then 6, 2 by 3, 6, 4 by 5. Okay, now what do we see? We are basically seeing that it's starting from 6 and we are getting closer to 7, right? So this means that the answer would be 7. And why is it 7? It is 7 because we're starting with 6, then it's 6, 6.5, 6.666, and so on. It's increasing like that, and it would become 7 finally. So the value of z would be 7. Okay. Let's talk about the 10th question now. So in the 10th question, what we have is f of x is 4x plus 5 and g of x is 3x plus 7. So we need to find this composite function. In order to find this composite function, I need to use the value of g in f of x, right? So it would be 3x plus 7 equals what? Equals what we had for the function f. 4 into, instead of x, I will write down the value of this function, that is 3x plus 7. And all I need to do is I just have to simplify this. So it is going to be plus 7, since that is the value of that is the value of x this time in the function, plus 5. So it would be basically 4 into 3x, that is 12x. So we know that the coefficient of x would be 12. I can directly cancel out c and d, and then it would be 4 into 7, that is 28, plus 5, that is 33. So b is the answer. Now again, as I've been telling you guys, always focus on the fact that these are MCQs. You can always just cross out the wrong answers immediately. So let's say you come across a question and you're not able to find the answer, but at least you would be able to cross out the wrong options, right? So that way the option with which you would be left at the end would be answer. Okay, let's talk about the 11th question. Again, when we will use x approaching to 0, x to the 5, x cube, x square, 7x, and then in the denominator we have x to the 6, x to the 4, x square. All these will become 0 and all these will become 0, right? So we will be left with 8 by 5. That is the answer. Again, in this question, there was no point in using the Lopital's rule and doing it that way because we were able to get a proper answer, right? This wasn't the indeterminate form, so we were able to do it directly. Okay. And let's talk about the last question for this video. That is sine pz divided by mz. Now, when I will use the value of z equals 0, I know that it would become sine 0 divided by 0. Sine 0 would be what? Sine 0 would be 0, right? So this again is turning out to be, if I do it directly, it turns out to be 0 divided by 0. So you cannot say that the answer is 0. You cannot say that the answer is infinity because you're dividing it by 0. No, this is the indeterminate form. In order to find the answer, you need to first take the derivative of both the numerator and denominator with respect to z and then find the answer. So sine pz, okay? The derivative of sine pz would be Okay, so we know that the derivative of sine is cos. It would be cos, and then it would be pz, and the derivative of the angle is p, so that would come here. And this divided by the derivative of mz with respect to z, that would be simple m. Now let's use the value of z as 0. So cos 0 becomes what? Cos 0 is basically 1. Okay, so this would be p by m. Okay, so in this part of the video, we have done 12 questions. We'll do more questions in the next part. The only thing which you need to understand is that since we are talking about limits and functions together, some questions can be done easily directly. Like the 11th question, we were able to just cancel out the values of the terms with x when x is approaching to 0, and we were left with 8 by 5. We tried doing the same thing in the 12th question as well, but we ended up getting the indeterminate form, right? Whenever you come across indeterminate form, you cannot leave things directly. You need to simplify this way or the other, and that basically is done by using the Lopital's rule, where you take the derivative of the numerator and the denominator and then use the limit and then tell the answer. Okay, so this way we have done these questions, and then there were some questions about composite functions as well. So that concept was easy. We just need to use the value of function instead of x and we are good to go. So yeah, we have done these 12 questions in this part. I'll do more questions in the next part of this video.